Good morning. My name is Andy Hawkins. I am the Vice Chairman for Four Corners Economic Development. That is my evening job. I am also the Community Relations Senior Manager for Navajo Transitional Energy Company. That's the job that pays the bills. But we're glad that you could be here this morning. Four Corners Economic Development, our vision is to, of course, develop the Four Corners region. Not just Farmington, not just Aztec, not just Kirtland, Bloomfield, but really to look regionally and develop the entire area. And so we would encourage you, if you are not a member of FORSED, please come and talk to us afterwards. We would like to talk to you about how we can include your business in being part of our regional outreach, of how we are out there working for you, creating an environment and these situations and the opportunities for growth in this area. Because as we continue to grow, we want to include everyone who's there. And we would also like to come and interview you about your business and how can we help you and how can Four Corners Economic Development better serve our community. Also, you'll notice on the table in front of you, if you're wondering what we do besides the breakfast that we do every quarter, there is a strategic plan. If there's not enough copies on your table, please see Scott in the back afterwards. We'd be happy to provide you with one. This is the vision for the future. How are we going to develop the Four Corners area? What industries and what attitudes are we going after? And how are we going to develop this area? And so with that, this morning, we have with us Secretary Rob Black with the New Mexico Economic Development Department. And he's going to give us a presentation this morning, and then afterwards, we'll have some time for you to ask questions. So, born and raised in New Mexico, Rob Black brings over 25 years of experience and leadership in public policy, advocacy, and economic development to his role as Cabinet Secretary for the New Mexico Economic Development Department. Prior to taking on his role at the Economic Development Department, Secretary Black was the President and CEO of the New Mexico Chamber of Commerce, where he led the Chamber for over 6 years. While at the Chamber, he launched Be Pro, Be Proud, a statewide career technical engagement program in partnership with the New Mexico Department of Workforce Solutions. Secretary Black also launched the New Mexico Organized Retail Crime Association to better coordinate between law enforcement and retailers on key public safety issues. Prior to joining the Chamber, Secretary Black was the Senior Director for Community Relations and managed the corporate foundation at Pacific Gas and Electric of California, one of the largest combined gas and electric utility companies in the country. He holds a bachelor's degree in political science from the University of New Mexico and a Juris Doctorate from the University of California College of Law, San Francisco. Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary Black.
I realize that Lobo comment might not have made me a lot of friends. Thank you so much for the warm welcome and the opportunity to be here and the invitation to speak with you today. Again, my name is Rob Black. I've been in the role just about 11 months now, and it has been an incredible honor to be able to work for my state, to try to build pathways to prosperity and to create economic opportunity. And it is an amazing opportunity for me to be up here to hear from you. So I'll present a little bit today, but I really want to do the Q&A part of it. I want to hear what your priorities are. We've got the report, and the reports are good, but it's also really important to hear directly from folks around, especially business leaders, around what your priorities are and how we can be an asset and a team member to support that. So I'll see if I can make this work. Here we go. So this is the mission statement for our department. It's literally, we're here to make a great pathways to opportunity and prosperity for New Mexico families and to make a place where businesses can thrive in our state. What's not also said, but I think we should add, especially since I've got a legislator here and a couple of legislators here in the audience, is the other thing that's really important for what we do every day is we're there to create new revenue for the state. Us in tourism are the only departments there are. Our job is to bring more revenue, bring jobs here, bring money here. So if we're doing our jobs, we're actually helping grow the state's economy, but also revenue for the state so that we can fund education, we can fund those sort of things. So that's a big part of that mission as well. But what we get up and do every day, and I have Steve and Lorraine here on my team, and what we get up every day focused on is how are we going to improve families' lives? How are we going to make them more prosperous? How are we going to make businesses able to hire those folks and create that wealth here in our state? And that's, I've got a team of almost 80 people now. We're building out to that every day we get up focused on that mission. And these are some of the areas where we execute that mission. From what happens in the office of the secretary to the organizations that we support, like Spaceport, the Border Authority, our military base planning programs, and then a lot of programs that you know well. Main Street, you guys have done a lot with that. Outdoor Rec, we've done a lot of partnerships with the community around our Trails Plus program, outdoor equity programs, our healthy foods programs, our film and television division. So as you can see, we've got a lot of different pieces to our puzzle that we use to try to help New Mexico. And there's one that I did not mention, which is the Technology and Innovation Office. And I'll talk a little bit more about that one in a little bit, because that's a brand new department that we stood up thanks to the legislature in July this year. And there's a lot of things that we use to try to help create economic opportunity. And I do see here, I've got a couple of folks from Arizona, which I'm excited to see. I met that last night. And they're here, maybe, hopefully, looking at a place that they could do some manufacturing and build some jobs here in the state. And so this is my chance to tell them about the great programs that we've got. So LEDA, our local economic development grants, JTIP, which is for workforce, CAP, which helps subsidize loans for small businesses. You just go down the list and you'll see a variety of programs, all designed to assist New Mexico businesses and businesses locating to New Mexico to be able to have that pathway to prosperity, have that opportunity to grow their businesses. And really the best way to do that is talking to Lorraine and Steve. Steve, back there, up here. They're our team on the ground. And this map here and these names show the reps that we have throughout the state of New Mexico, working in communities, helping deploy dollars, helping to make sure that New Mexico companies, we're giving them the opportunities to grow, and new opportunities for companies to move into New Mexico to expand their operations. Our job training incentive program is called JTIP. Who's heard of JTIP in the room? Oh, that's fantastic. So there's a great group. Again, I got business leaders in the room, so that makes it easy. So the JTIP program is a great way to reimburse while you have new hires coming on. We reimburse up to 80% sometimes, depending on where you're at, for the first 6 months of your hires. So great incentive, and it's cash that we will pay you every quarter. So if you've got that person hired, we're going to give you cash. And it's been around since 1972. It's one of the oldest job training programs in the U.S. and one of the most successful. Our LEDA program helps pay for capital infrastructure. So we will provide grants. So that is money that will go to vertical building construction. It'll go to pay for leases. It'll go to pay for retrofitting a building. So when you're trying to bring people in and you've got old industrial space that needs a facelift, LEDA can be your facelift, and we can work with you to help do that. So that's one of our, again, more successful programs, and we often call it our closing fund. A couple of new programs, and these are things that I am very, very excited about that we now have in New Mexico. And I'm a little creaky. It's not my knee, I promise. one of the things, it was mentioned that I worked at the Chamber of Commerce. I was the head of the state chamber for 6 years. And one of the very first meetings I had when I moved back home to New Mexico with my policy teams at the chamber, made up of members and developers, was we don't have enough sites to sell. So when people want to come to New Mexico, it takes 3, 4, 5 years to deploy, to build the infrastructure needed to build out an industrial space. And I was like, well, why is that? And nobody really had a great answer. It was just like, we can't seem to do it. Well, one thing that we haven't done is develop a program to examine where we have the opportunities to build those sites, characterize those sites, what do they have in place today, and what do they need to be ready for development? And then how do we get utilities to deploy faster? So it took me a long time to figure out this, but 6 years later, when the governor when she called me and said, would you be interested in this role with the cabinet? So I would like to, if I do it, I have some things I'd love to accomplish. And it's stuff that I've been working with the business community on for years. One is I want to create a site readiness program. And the second is I want to build a program that allows us to pre-deploy utilities so we can be in the ground faster when a company calls. And she said, absolutely, 100%. We should have been doing it years ago. So with her backing and with the legislature's backing, we were able to pass these 2 bills. SB 169, we have now gone out already, identified 28 sites throughout New Mexico. One of them is here, the industrial complex. And we've evaluated it, whether it has water, wastewater, electricity, the size, access to rail, access to highways, et cetera. Does it have an environmental review? Does it need a housing study? All of that is built into a report. That report will, in the next month, will be on our website, and we'll be marketing your sites. Not only that, once we go through the process, we're standing up an advisory board for these sites that we've already reviewed. Again, we've reviewed 28 public sites. We're in the process of doing 23 more. Those will include private sector, private land as well. We'll evaluate those to whether or not they're a strategic economic development site. If it is, you'll become eligible for funding that came with SB 169. The legislature gave us $24 million to do lateral infrastructure. So it could be connecting fiber. It could be building a road. All of those sorts of things to get that site ready for your community. It's also going to create a pathway.
Switch out real quick. See if we can avoid the stage noise.
Okay. I think I just have to stand still. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So nice work. Yes. So, of course, now I'm distracted. It's $24 million. I should never get distracted from $24 million. But what it also does is, for the legislators in the room, what we're going to create is a pathway for your capital outlay for the most efficient way to spend those dollars to create jobs in your community. Because we're going to work with you to identify those sites and say, here's the 3 things you could do for this site to get it ready for development. And so very excited about this process. It's going very quickly, which is great. And so but the other piece that's been, again, that real barrier is, okay, now we need electricity, or we need sewer, we need water, et cetera. But in particular, electricity. And since COVID, with what happened with our supply chains, it literally has been 3 to 5 years when somebody's come into our office, said, we need this size of a site, 100,000 square feet, we need this much power. And our utilities say, that's great, you'd love for you to be our customer. It'll take us a couple of years to get through the PRC, and then we'll be able to order the equipment. And that might take 2 to 3 more years. And that's where we've been stuck. And so what we've done with SB 170 is, when we have certified a site as a strategic economic development site, And there's two ways to do that. One is through the site readiness program I just talked to you about. The other is a utility or co-op or a municipal electric company can come to us and say, we would like you to certify this site. That means I have 60 days to review that site using site selection criteria, national site selection criteria, say, yeah, that is a strategic economic development site. After 60 days, if we determine that it is, they can take that letter and certification to the PRC and have a 6-month review process to move forward. And even if there's no customer sitting there, because again, we're talking about speculative development, right? We don't have a customer identified. We're trying to get it ready for a customer. Even if there's not a customer sitting there today, that utility can hold it in what's called a regulatory asset, which means they don't lose the ability to recover their costs. Prior to this bill, if a company, power company, built that equipment pre-deployed to be ready for development, and there wasn't a customer there to take it as soon as it's finished construction, they had to write it off. They couldn't recover the costs. So why would they ever do that? They wouldn't. And so that was the problem on the regulatory side that meant we weren't ready for development. We solved that with this piece of legislation. And in fact, it went into law June 20th. I got an application from Xcel Energy on June 20th. I expect 3 applications from P&M. I've got one coming from El Paso Electric. I hope we can get some of our co-ops doing this. We've created a funding mechanism through the bill as well for co-ops in case they don't have ratepayer, they don't have the dollars to spend. So again, we're hoping we're making it a much quicker pathway to development. And this talks a little bit about kind of how we've worked on our utility pre-deployment, but again, very exciting opportunity and a game changer, I think, for New Mexico. This just talks a little bit about the steps that you will go through whenever you go through the SB 170 process. But we've met with the PRC, we've met with their council, we've met with their chief of staff. We're aligned that this is a process that is absolutely integral to New Mexico's economic opportunities going forward. So my hope is you're going to see within 6 months, I guess I got 30 more days, within about 9 months, you're going to see this actually being deployed, equipment being deployed, ground being turned for projects that have used these to expedite these programs. The other one that's really exciting that was passed, and thank you again to Representative Lundstrom down south. She was the author of this bill, the Trade Ports Bill, HB 19. It creates $50 million for infrastructure dollars and public-private partnerships for inland trade ports. So community, whether that's Gallup, Bernalillo County, Doña Ana County, can apply to the Economic Development Department to be designated as a trade port. What we would look for is opportunities. Do you have intermodal hubs for logistics moving? Are you a foreign trade zone? Those sorts of things, so that whenever we designate you as a trade port, we're then able to deploy that $50 million to build rail spurs, to build refrigeration, encourage manufacturing in a way that sits within a foreign trade zone so that you get tariff benefits. So these are all opportunities to increase international trade and reshore manufacturing. And this is really a best-in-class effort by the state of New Mexico to build that infrastructure. That law went into effect July 1, so we're now standing up the advisory council for that. And then we will, in the rulemaking process, so that when communities apply, they'll have the information about how they could designate themselves as a trade port, and that will be we'll be working to deploy that this year as well. Technology and Innovation Office. We call it TIO. It's got $90 million, so it's your rich uncle. That joke landed terribly. Gosh, come on, where's my Spanish speakers? So TIO is really designed to take advantage of the unique opportunities and competitive advantages that New Mexico has. Many of you probably know this, but it's worth repeating. New Mexico has, per capita, the highest number of PhDs in the United States. we have 3 times per capita the number of dollars in public R&D funding of any other state in the United States. We invented fusion, fission, and fracking in New Mexico. You start to lay these things out and you say, well, we still do pretty well with fracking, right? But when you think about it, we've lost, this is where Microsoft started. Quantum computing was invented at Sandia National Labs. And you start going through those Robert Goddard, inventor of the rocket, Roswell, New Mexico. Oppenheimer. You just go through. But we haven't made it sticky. We haven't made that R&D sticky here. And that's what we really are trying to do. And when you think about areas where New Mexico's actually made investments in trying to build and support an industry, whoever I was talking with, don't raise your hand because that's cheating. You got the answer beforehand. Give me any examples of where New Mexico's actually tried to build an industry intentionally. Film, yes. Anything else? We built an infrastructure and then we kind of just walked away. We haven't been intentional. That's the thing, right? We start and then we stop. Where have we been intentional? I think the one other place is tourism. And you could say both of those, whether or not you like film or not, we've built an industry. We've built infrastructure. We've built a workforce pipeline. We have been successful. Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Las Cruces are among the top countries every year by the film industry saying they like to film there. Albuquerque's number 1. And so we have built those. Now, is AI and other things going to really disrupt that industry? Yeah, we've got to figure out how to move forward. But when you think about where we've made bets, it's very few. And I believe that TO is going to be how we're going to make those bets. Think about, again, the things that I just talked about. What are the things that we're really good at? Advanced energy, advanced computing, things that blow things up, space and defense. And so that's what and we'll throw in some biotech there. Now that's an area where we haven't built the density, but we really are, to your point on space, we have the resources, we have the technology, we have the sites, we have New Mexico Tech, the only university in the United States with a bombing range, 40 square miles. You start to add on these assets and you start to tell that story. We haven't been good at telling that story either, and that's something that our department has to get better at. But we're going to make bets. We're going to make bets on advanced computing. We are talking to a variety of companies around data centers, what that looks like in New Mexico. We're making a bet on quantum computing, that not only computing, but quantum sensing and quantum communications. Because again, Sandia built the first quantum fab in the world. UNM has the best doctoral program for quantum computing in the world, but we need to make it sticky here. So we're going to make some investments there. The governor of Illinois put $500 million into a campus there. Maryland's doing something similar. But we're going to be making some serious investments here with the legislative support in those areas, because we believe those are the technologies. If we're chasing what other states do well, if we're trying to be Silicon Valley, we'll never win. But where we lean in on our strengths, we think we can be leaders, and we believe those areas of advanced energy, advanced computing, defense, and space are those areas. So our Office of TO is going to be leaning in on that. The legislature was kind enough to give us, and I'm frankly honored to have the trust. We got almost $200 million of new money into economic development this year alone. My annual budget's a little over $20 million. So that gives you the scope of the new investments that the state, that the legislature, that the governor have driven towards economic development in our state. And I do believe it's going to be a game changer for us. This is my leadership team that helps drive the conversations around the state, around whether it's film, traditional economic development, et cetera. Creative economy, we also have a new division there. So in the arts, and how do we leverage that? Obviously, again, our outdoor recreation division, Karina has been doing amazing work. I know that we've got an amazing new wave park here. And again, we're just so pleased to be able to partner with you. So with that, I will like to stand for questions. And I don't know if you need my new fancy mic up here. Oh, you got one.
Got two microphones. Carmen has one, I have the other. Please don't ask a question without a microphone because Greg, who is recording, will be able to record the question and the answer. So, Secretary Black, questions?
Once again, thank you, Secretary Black, for making the trip up here. So a question that's related to the legislature and what you're trying to do and trying to coordinate that more with legislation. So last session, you're trying to bring companies into the state, but a big move the legislation tried to move through was the FMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act, which was something that most businesses felt was very onerous. And of course, it's hard on the companies here, but it also makes it more difficult, I think, to recruit. Pesco's a company that we don't have our own, we don't live in a New Mexico bubble. We sell equipment across the western United States, and we compete against companies that are manufacturing in Texas. So we have to be on a level playing field with those, and we get these kinds of legislation being proposed that really makes it more difficult for New Mexico companies and probably doesn't help us in recruiting. So do you have ideas on how to educate our legislature to try to be more in line with what your vision is? Thank you.
Thank you. I have to be careful not to adopt my Chamber of Commerce voice when I'm sitting as secretary. So I think it's important to remember, and I don't mean to be, it might be a little bit of joking, but we do live in a democracy, and part of that is legislators get elected in districts, and they have the right and the obligation to present policy ideas forward. And that particular bill has been introduced, I believe, every year since 2019. It hasn't passed. And in fact, its support has been getting less. So I think the legislatures are learning about some of the challenges of the way that those bills have been proposed in the past. So it is, I think we also have to take with a grain of salt. And again, I grew up in a part of the state that anything north of I-40 was suspect. I mean, southeast New Mexico does not feel like they get the right end of the stick ever. So I get the feeling of like, hey, Santa Fe's not listening, Santa Fe's not paying attention. But I also, there was another bill that was introduced, and it breaks my heart. There was two bills introduced this last session to strictly regulate autonomous vehicles. We had a company called Torque operating out of Albuquerque. It's an autonomous semi-truck company. When those bills got introduced, they laid off 80 people and moved to Texas. So those introductions have consequences. But I also think it's important that we don't overstep that just because a legislator introduces a bill, I mean, the Green Amendment's been introduced, again, every year since 2019. It can't even get, I mean, it's like, I don't know if it's got out of committee yet, but they keep introducing it. I think we have to, balance, like, what is the wisdom of the legislature actually going to manifest? And my hope is that as they continue to hopefully prioritize the need to create economic opportunity for a state with a lot of poor people. We're not a poor state. We have resources, but our people are poor. So we need to make investments that help them grow. And so my hope is, and my belief is that the legislature is heading in the right direction, but it is incumbent upon people like everyone in this room to talk to those legislators, to help them understand the consequences, whether of both of introducing bills, but of the potential impact for your ability to hire, to grow the economy, because it's really the businesses in this room and across the state that do that. My job is to get government out of the way and create an opportunity, a stimulus to help. We're not the guys who create the economy, it's you. So our job is to be here and help facilitate that, and I think it's important that you're consistent in that message. I see Jamie here from the Chamber of Commerce. She's an amazing advocate for this community. And I worked with Jamie for years when I was at the State Chamber of Commerce. And it is those voices, it's the economic development organizations, it's the chambers that are very active. But when you can show up as a business, and I know it's a pain in the butt, sorry for that, but it is, especially if you're a small business, to have to step away from your business to go talk to the legislators in Santa Fe. It's hard, but it does make a difference. And I just think it's that constancy that we have to keep. And we can't, the governor, Rod, Montoya, I mean, we can't, whoever it is that's kind of trying to manage these things, there are legislators that are going to do what legislators do and introduce bills. They're going to be trying to be responsive to what they see as their constituency. It's just making sure that in the end, the wisdom that prevails is one that's good for our economy and good for our families. Jason?
Good morning, Secretary Black. Thank you very much for making the trip to our little neck of the woods.
Thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
it. Would you mind please sharing with the group your efforts, the efforts of the economic development and the administration in providing new opportunities for natural gas coming out of this basin, as well as our friends to the north along the Rocky Mountains, and the progress of doing as much?
So if you, that is called a softball. Because, and Jason knows this well because I've been traveling around with him on a lot of this stuff. So again, I started in this role in September last year from the Chamber of Commerce. And if you'd have said in August of 2024, hey, Rob, next year you're going to be going to Singapore, Japan, Alaska with the governor, selling New Mexico LNG potential to Asian markets, I'd have said you're crazy. But that's what I've been doing since April. And Jason's been part of those discussions as well. And in big part, it's because of the work that has been done by the industry to ensure that every unit of natural gas produced in New Mexico, every barrel of oil, is the cleanest gas and cleanest oil produced in the world. And until you figure out how to make concrete, steel, plastic, and fertilizer without those assets, you're going to need them. And so why shouldn't the world be buying the cleanest natural gas in the world? If we sell our natural gas to Tokyo, to Japan, to South Korea, Vietnam, Singapore, we can decarbonize those markets by 40%. And they are very interested in being able to do that. They have their own environmental goals they want to achieve. Right now, so it gives us an opportunity to create jobs in New Mexico and to continue to promote things that are going to help decarbonize the world economy. And that's by using some of the cleanest gas in the world here in the San Juan Basin. So the governor has been very, very passionate about this, very active. We went to Alaska. We literally kind of jumped into their energy conference. Crashed the party, thank you. Yeah, we crashed the party. So as many of you have been hearing, that the federal administration's been really pushing the Alaska pipeline and Alaska natural gas. And that's important. That's great. I mean, we need energy, that pursuit of energy dominance for the United States. And so it's not saying no to Alaska, but that project's probably a decade or more off. We can get San Juan natural gas out through existing pipelines. Now, they need to be improved, but going west, then going south. In Baja California, Sempra's building out an LNG plant that will go online the second quarter of 2026. That will allow energy markets from the Rockies to send natural gas, LNG, to Asia. Right now, that gas has to go through the Panama Canal or all the way around South America. So we could greatly improve that timeline, and so we can be deployed next year, or in real sense with upgraded pipelines 2 to 3 years out versus a decade in Alaska, and much, much cheaper here in New Mexico. So when we were in Tokyo, we were there with the Republican governor from Wyoming, Governor Gordon, and Governor Lujan Grisham, promoting the Rocky Mountains natural gas as an important strategic asset for our Asian allies. And so it's been a really interesting process, and Jason and I and others through the Western States and Tribal Nations Energy Alliance are working on an infrastructure study that can demonstrate to investors why this is one of the most important plays for natural gas in the world today. So we're excited about the opportunities and continue to lean in. Thank you for the question. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Rob. Secretary, thank you very much. Barb Tedrow, owner of Gold Star Academies.
It's great to see you.
Yes, thank you. So when you were director of the New Mexico Chamber, you were very integral in helping us with legislation, childcare, high-quality childcare, and getting the GRT exemption. So I'm curious, I know your stance when you were secretary, but how your stance on having high-quality childcare available as an economic development driver to local economies at the state level, your view as secretary. So one, has that kind of your background in working with the chambers and working on the advisory council, what is that now in your role as secretary? And two, talking about LEDA, how do you feel that adding childcare into one of the businesses that can be accessible to qualify under LEDA? Because as we all understand, you can bring in businesses into New Mexico, but if those workers don't have access to high quality childcare, then you won't ever get them through the doors.
Sure, and thank you for that. Again, that's softball number 2. When I was at the chamber, one of the first things I worked on was the creation of the Early Childhood Education and Care Department. My business leaders told me that that was an important thing for New Mexico, that we needed to help get that bill done. So we were very active in passing the bill, working with Senator Padilla. And then I served as vice chair or co-chair of the governor's Early Childhood Education Task Force up until the time I took on the role as the cabinet secretary. So it's something that I do personally feel very strongly about. I had 2 kids who went through those programs here in New Mexico. They're I know I look pretty old, but my kids are still pretty young. And it's a really, really important for our workforce to be able to allow that for families. And the investments that the legislature have made to create the funding structures to support early childhood is a difference maker, I believe, in New Mexico. We are starting to see, we're not there yet, but we're starting to see some of the results with those young people who have started in those programs 4 or 5 years ago, now coming up into 3rd grade. So we need to see those reading levels improve. We need to see the math levels improve. But when I moved back home in 2018, the thing that really struck me, I remember seeing this research, our kids entered kindergarten a year behind developmentally, on average, before they even got to school, a year behind. So there was a real need for us to really put resources into that. So still incredibly passionate about it, feel it's absolutely essential for the success, long-term success of our economy and our families. Should it be part of LEDA? I've been talking about how much I love our legislators and what they've done for our budget. I got $0 in new LEDA money. I got $0 in JTIP. So I have, if the legislature decides that child care facilities should be part of LEDA, they also were pushing for healthcare facilities, right? Then there needs to be money there to support it, because I would hate to take that money away from our ability to create economic-based jobs. LEDA is designed for really like things like manufacturing, economic-based jobs. Many of you know this because you're here at a economic development meeting, but it's a job, it's a business that's bringing money outside into the community. And often what is seen with retail, with health facilities, with child care facilities, is it circulates within the economy, but it doesn't bring new money in. I think that's not always right, but that's kind of the way the legislature has structured the LEDA programs, our JTIP programs today. If we were to expand it, it would need to have additional resources, because if we stole from the economic-based investments, that would be, I would not think that would be a good decision. Yes, sir.
Secretary Black, thank you for being here. My name is George Sharp. I work in the energy industry, and New Mexico has a aggressive environmental carbon reduction program to be carbon-free by 2045. Math doesn't hunt. Certainly not with wind and solar. Nuclear is the only true, reliable, consistent, carbon-free energy source, and yet I don't think the New Mexico Energy Transition Act, or whatever it's called, says much, if anything, at all about nuclear, even though, again, we have more PhDs, we have the labs, we have the WIP isolation, we have uranium here in the state, and yet we, the highest potential energy source on the planet, and it doesn't seem like we're doing much to develop it. Can you speak to that?
I missed your name. Could you say your name again?
George Sharp.
Thank you, George.
All right.
I'm a big fan, again, as I mentioned, fission, fusion, and fracking were all invented in New Mexico. And when you look at the nuclear assets we have, whether then that goes to fission or fusion, the labs, as you mentioned WIP, Urenco, we're the only uranium enrichment plant in the United States is in New Mexico. My dad was a county commissioner who helped get that sited in Lee County. We have Kairos Power, which is they're the company that's contracted with Google to provide SMRs, small modular reactors, to their data centers. Their R&D and manufacturing is based in New Mexico. So we have tremendous assets here, and it's Los Alamos National Labs is providing the fuel for the pilots for Kairos. So again, we've got a great synergy. We also have a tough history, right? We really started doing uranium mining first in New Mexico in a rush to ensure the world's safety. We weren't so focused on the mining safety at the time. And so we've left some really bad environmental legacies, whether that's the mines and how they were managed when they were started in the 30s, 40s, 50s, or how we managed downwinders in the South from white sands. So it's created a harder conversation than really should be, because the nuclear industry today is not the same it was 60, 70 years ago. And the technology that the small modular reactors are building out, whether again that's Kairos or Westinghouse, are very different. The Energy Transition Act does specifically exclude nuclear as a qualified energy source in the transition. I think we need to fix that. And I believe there's support. The governor has been talking publicly about the importance of SMRs and that she wants an all of the above clean energy portfolio. We announced that Pacific Fusion, a fusion company, nuclear fusion, is looking to build their R&D. It'd be $1 billion R&D facility in Albuquerque. So we're working to really, again, plant a flag. We believe that there are really important opportunities in those areas. The other, I would say, and you're uniquely positioned for this as well because of the workforce you have, and especially in the oil and gas sector, is in advanced geothermal. So many of you may have seen, we had a great announcement in May with a company called XGS Geothermal and Meta. Meta contracted for them to build $1 billion, 150 megawatt advanced geothermal plant. They're currently looking in the Northwest for the location for that plant. And that is a closed loop system. It's very, very efficient. They've already built a plant in California, so they know the technology works. That creates what's called firm load. Firm load, for those of you who don't know, is really important because it actually works at night or when the wind's not blowing. And so it's that base load that really makes it, creates the reliability. So you have to have that to augment and support solar and wind and other intermittent energy sources. So I think geothermal is going to be a really interesting opportunity. The one other thing I would flag to that is why I'm a little more bullish on geothermal than I was even a year and a half ago. I was down 2 weeks ago in a place in southwest New Mexico, a place called Lightning Dock. It's the one geothermal plant we have in New Mexico today. A couple years ago, Lightning Dock, it was built maybe 20 years ago, and that geothermal plant was designed to be about a 15 megawatt plant. It was down to producing about 2 megawatts because the hole wasn't very good and the plumbing was not great. So they were about to retire it, and this company called Zanskar bought it. Zanskar is an AI-based geothermal company that uses kind of next-generation seismic sensors to identify where the best places are to drill. They drilled a new hole 400 feet from the existing well using advanced drilling techniques pioneered in New Mexico, horizontal drill, and they took that 2 megawatt well to a 15 megawatt well with that one hole. It is now the most efficient geothermal well in the United States. And we just published a report from our Department of Geology and Interspace showing that New Mexico has some of the best hot rock in all of the world. The Zanskar guys believe they could have, and they're already producing electrons. This isn't pie in the sky. I mean, SMRs are still 4 or 5 years out. Hopefully less, but it's still some time out. There's not a functioning SMR other than in a nuclear submarine, really, in a commercial setting that's happening today. The Zanskar project is creating electrons today. They believe they can have a gigawatt of firm geothermal in New Mexico in a decade. So those, and they're going to use the workforce from natural gas and oil. So again, we have some unique competitive advantages. We need to be leaning in on those opportunities. Thank you for the question.
Hi, I'm Sherry Chenault. I had a question. I heard 3 words from you: AI, data center, and Meta. And so with so much focus today on the investment with legislation on the energy section here, what opportunities exist for local entrepreneurs in other industries like digital service and technology to partner with energy companies or benefit from this growth?
Wow, that's an interesting question. So entrepreneurs, technology, capitalizing on that growth. So, and energy sector overlap. So I think there's a variety of things there. We're going to see, and I just mentioned an AI opportunity, AI energy intersect with Zanskar. They're the first AI-driven data center or AI geothermal program company. You're going to start to see more of that, where whether it's analysis on grid resilience, on how to around energy efficiency, a variety of things, where to drill, how to drill, and then you're going to get into what are the chemicals needed for material sciences that support that. That's where you get into what quantum computing is able to do. They're able to do a level of calculation that it could take supercomputers hundreds, if not thousands of years to do. The most powerful supercomputer in the world, a quantum computer could do, like the analysis that example I heard recently was a gentleman from the Boston Consulting Group on this, and he's part of our Elevate Quantum Board of Directors. He was talking about, and I mentioned the idea that you can't really make fertilizer without methane and natural gas. And fertilizer accounts for about 4 to 6% of the world's carbon emissions, making fertilizer. But there is an opportunity using quantum computing to analyze the chemical structure of that process to reduce that carbon footprint. But that calculation would take the world's fastest supercomputer today literally thousands of years to do. It could be done in about 24 hours using quantum computing. And so I think there's going to be opportunities to look at what is the programming stacks for those things, what's the technology around that, how do you keep a computer cold? Those are going to be opportunities. Then it's also going to be around figuring out how to deploy AI effectively. It is coming fast, folks. If you're kind of mid-career white-collar person, learn how to use AI, because the person who knows how to use it is going to keep that job and you're not. And I hate to say it that way, but it is coming fast. So I think from a business side and a technology provider, small business technology provider, figuring out how to support those companies to make more efficient services, help them design, whether that's a law firm, whether that's a logistics company, to use the technology effectively. And then on the data center in a broader sense, I'll use an example of kind of, again, why I think LIDA is so important. In 2015, we did a $10 million LIDA grant for Meta in Los Lunas to help lock that deal down. And there were other incentives and other things, but that was a major investment from the state. Since that time, since 2015, when they started construction, and they are still in construction, if you look at the base year GRT for the village of Los Lunas and what the new baseline GRT from there to the state, it's it's a third of $1 billion new tax revenue, straight GRT new tax revenue from that village alone. 20% population growth in Los Lunas since construction started. When you think about impact to rural New Mexico, small town New Mexico, that data center has been transformative for revenue, for what it's done for the community, for the investments in the schools. The other thing that people say, well, once you build a data center, it's kind of there's not a lot of jobs left. There's going to be 300 to 400 full-time jobs at Meta, and there's about 8 or I can't remember if it's going to be 8 or 10 final buildings, but every 3 years they're replacing all of the chips and computers in those buildings. So they're just going back and redoing those programs. So where you can become a supply chain provider for those, or service provider for those data centers, there's a lot of spin-off jobs for that as well. So I think those are the places, I guess, and I'm not sure if I'm answering the question the way you wanted me to, but I see those are areas of opportunity when you intersect the technology and where some of that energy work is as well. Yes, sir.
I have the microphone and I get a chance to ask a question, so 2 for 2. I'm a big fan of business incubation. I know a lot of people here in the room are very proud, and rightfully so, of what San Juan College has done with business incubation. We hear a lot from you about big business, mostly Rio Grande corridor focused, unfortunately, but it is what it is. Can you talk about the role of the EDD in supporting business incubation and the startup of 2 and 3 and 4 person companies? Because I think still that's where most of the growth is happening statewide and certainly here in San Juan County. And what the department may be doing to strengthen investment, credential, or whatever else to raise that platform for excellence.
So we do invest. I mean, we're investing here in your EDOs. So where you've got a certified EDO, we're providing additional funding for that. Our Main Street programs, and then we have a variety of other incubators. So whether it's we just certified a brand new one in New Space, New Mexico, as an incubator on the space sector and defense side. So we invest in those sort of incubators around the state. Small business growth, especially in rural New Mexico, it is. I think what I've come to believe, and I'm open to being corrected and educated, is that a big part of it is creating the infrastructure around it to help drive growth. Like, I think the wave park that you guys have done, and I believe you've got a bump track here as well, and looking at what is that tourism that you're bringing in, creates opportunities for entrepreneurs to tie into that. And I'll use our most recent example, and I'm going to push back on the Rio Grande corridor a little bit. I was just out with the Picaris Pueblo. We invested $500,000 for a total of $700,000 into a brand new world-class, X Games class bicycle motocross park. I mean, your kids are doing literally flips and jumps. It's what's called a progressive park. So if you ski, you go from the green to the blue to the black. They have those sort of lines in this park. And they have the ability to jump, to learn how to jump and flip, because first time you jump, you land into an air pit, like a blow-up house. And next, you land in mulch, and then you start landing on dirt. But it gives kids the ability to grow into what would be literally professional class activity. We cut the ribbon on that 3 weeks ago. There were people from Kansas, California, Colorado, and Arizona at that park saying this is one of the best in the country. They don't build parks like this for people. They're usually private. This is a public park. That's going to create a ton of activity into that community. You had a bunch of kids and adults riding around on $10,000, $20,000 bicycles. They have money to spend. So that physical investment is going to drive rural economic opportunity. I think looking at those sort of investments, like what our Trails Plus program does to tie that to our Main Street program, helps create the opportunity for entrepreneurs to succeed. We have West we support. We have a variety of other small business associations that we support, or organizations that help build business plans, that help build that support. And then our CAP program is another one, I think, that while not an incubator, it is a way to finance small businesses. So it helps capitalize and securitize small business loans, so we bring those costs of getting loans down. And we work with the private sector to do it. So we work with private banks to securitize those loans, so it's much cheaper for small businesses. So absolutely important that we make those sort of investments to grow those. We will be, now this is back to the Rio Grande, we will be announcing next week, if not this week, the winner of our Quantum Innovation Hub, which will be a partnership with the labs, with research universities, with private sector and VCs, leaning in on quantum computing, quantum innovation, or quantum communications, and sensors. And that is really designed, again, towards bringing up those entrepreneurs, those small businesses, while tying in some of the largest quantum companies in the world. So we're leaning in on those innovation hubs as well. That'll be a $25 million innovation hub.
Thanks, Secretary. Mark Duncan. I just want this room to understand that as a legislators, every bill that we get with this, the question is, what do we do for rural New Mexico? Every conversation we have. So I just want everybody in this room to know that, and that's one of the questions we asked Secretary Black. Okay, what are we doing for rural New Mexico? We do I-25 corridor. Man, those guys get everything, it seems. But every time we ask, what are we doing for rural New Mexico? How can rural New Mexico get a piece of that pie? So I just want everybody in this room to understand that we do try very hard.
And I think the other thing that's I would say is again back to the site readiness work. Those sites are all over New Mexico, and so what we're trying to do is make it easier for capital to deploy to your community, and then we'll help market that with you as a partnership. So again, I think that's another area where we believe we can really help our rural and frontier communities.
Any other questions? More, okay.
Thank you again for being here. I do have a question. We talked about site readiness, but I do know that as a state, we have a deficit of space available, just literal physical buildings. I didn't know if the state is working on any programs to help with build out of speculative buildings or things that we can use as an inventory to attract new business.
That's a great question, and you're absolutely right. We don't have enough speculative buildings. I think what we do have as a tool for that, and it's something I was able to work with when I was at the Chamber of Commerce, is we created the Opportunity Enterprise Fund within the Department of Finance Authority, New Mexico Finance Authority. And that was designed, and it didn't really work very well. You know, how the law writes and then how it's implemented, sometimes it's not really connected well. And the first couple of years of that program did not roll out well. I'll just be frank. But I think they've got that fixed. And in fact, it is funding now New Space Nexus's innovation hub that they're building for space. And it's super low interest loans for 30 years. And it creates a funding mechanism to build on spec. And it was designed to build wet labs, to build the opportunity to build a industrial shell building. And your interest rates, again, were supposed to be so low that it gave you the opportunity to really basically have free money to do that with. And so we're trying to build those tools that can encourage the private sector to build out that sort of space. Now, there is opportunity for cities and counties too, right? When we partner with you on site readiness, you can make the pitch. Say, hey, if you can give us, and I'll have some money to play with, to partner with you on. If you can get us fiber to this site, and the county can go vertical, then all of a sudden you've got a site with all of the things you need, and then we can help you market it. But it takes folks to take that risk to kind of step up and say, I'm going to bet on my community, and here's how we're going to do it.
Thank you. And to Mark's point, we do get quite a bit of money from the Economic Development Department, so thank you for your assistance. Thank you.
Other questions? You got great questions today.
I did. It was a very engaged audience. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. This has been and is one of the greatest honors, incredibly humbling to be able to sit in this role where my day job is to try to create prosperity for New Mexicans. It is exciting work. I do believe that we have come to a real pivot opportunity in the state. And I want to leave with some, kind of a little bit of an uplift, because I think it's important that we not only I know this, again, coming from a rural community, coming from Lovington, Permian Basin, there was always this kind of feeling of like government's not delivering for us. And now that I sit in government, still don't think that that's a wrong assessment sometimes. In fact, probably most times. But our focus is actually trying to make a difference, trying to impact communities and change that narrative. Again, every day getting up, how do we make lives better for New Mexicans today? Is this meeting going to help? Then why am I having this meeting? This meeting does help. That's why I'm having this meeting. So it's really a focus, and I've got 18 months left in this role to really try to impact what's happening. But one of the things that I want to leave you with that is unique, that is, how many of you know what the State Investment Council is? There's a few. How many of you know that we have a whole bunch of money in sovereign wealth funds? Okay, even less. All right. So back in the 70s, our legislative leaders, government leaders, decided we need to start putting away money that the state that's coming from oil and gas and saving it for a rainy day. That fund, those groups of funds, now represent about $67 billion. To give you the sense of scale of growth, when I moved back in 2018, it was $17 billion. So we went from 17 to 67. And that funds education, it funds early childhood education, it funds a variety of things, higher education. But what we have not done well with that is invest back into New Mexico. And there was some fits and starts in trying to do funding into programs that would fund startups here. The rate of return back to the state was frankly terrible, and we had very few jobs that came out of that program. And I talked to folks at the SIC when I was at the chamber, and how can we get this better? And there's a guy by the name of John Clark, used to be in my role, was deputy secretary in ADD, who's now the head of the State Investment Council. John's a great guy. He's one of the smartest economists we've got in the state. What they have done is they've pivoted their program, and they've started funding venture capital funds, and some of the biggest ones in the world. Khosla Ventures, Up Ventures, American Frontier Funds. They've put almost $2 billion into these investments. And what they've said is, we want you to bring a market rate of return back to New Mexico so that we can build, the trust funds for our kids. But we also want you to create jobs in New Mexico. And if you do that, you're eligible for the next round of funding into your fund. If you don't, no harm, no foul, you just won't qualify for new money. So I mentioned XGS Geothermal. The fund that funds XGS is funded by the SIC. That's why they looked at New Mexico first. Pacific Fusion is the fusion company that I mentioned, $1 billion potential capital investment for their R&D. Several funds that fund them, funded by the SIC. I have a major defense contractor, which I hope to be able to talk publicly about in the next couple of weeks. First looked at New Mexico because their fund was funded by the SIC. We're seeing a level of deal flow that is and these are all hundreds of millions of dollars of projects. So we're seeing a level of deal flow that's very different than how it's been in the past. And I think it's the only places really in the world, and that sovereign wealth fund, $67 billion to give scale, there's only one bigger fund in the United States than that, and that's Alaska. And we will beat them in the next 10 years. So when you look at the combination of a sovereign wealth fund making those sort of investments, and an economic development fund or economic development department that's been funded and resourced by the legislature, you look at where in the world this is happening: Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi and New Mexico. We've really created a very new, different, unique opportunity for our state to leverage. So I'm very excited about the future. I'm very excited about where we're heading as a state, and the investments that the legislature has made to allow us to invest in your communities and support your vision. I look forward to continuing that partnership. I know Lorraine and Scott will be helping locally, but anything we can do to be of assistance, please don't hesitate to call. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Black. We appreciate you coming here this morning and providing the update and answering questions. As we conclude this morning, thank you everyone for coming out. If you are excited by what you hear this morning, what I heard was tens of millions of dollars that the state is investing in economic development, and you want to know how is Four Corners Economic Development bringing some of that money to our region. I invite you to sign up for our newsletter. Go to the number 4cornersed.com and sign up for our newsletter. It comes out every Friday afternoon. Chris Hunter, who is in the back, puts that together for us and provides how we are fulfilling our mission that's listed out in the strategic plan that was on your table. If you are not a member, please stick around. We would love to talk to you more in depth about the things that we are doing, what the future looks like, and all of the exciting projects that are here in the Four Corners region. Our next breakfast is going to be November 11th, right back here. New Mexico Tech is going to come and bring us an update on all of the projects that they're working on and how they're investing into the Four Corners region. So as we close out this morning, thank you again, Secretary Black, for being here. And for everyone else that was here, thank you very much and have a safe day. Thank you.